Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 11th episode of the Futureworlds Metaverse podcast. Today, we have a very special guest, Danny Brown Wolf. She is at Upland. She's a chief of staff, and she comes to us from, I believe, Northern California. Thanks for coming on today, Danny.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So let's start with some background because I know you come from, I think, a tech background, right? It's kind of a varied background, but tell me the story.
I have a very weird background, which is actually, I mean, for Web3, it's not that weird, right? Because we all came from somewhere else. I actually started my career in policy. So I studied political science. My first job was at the United Nations. I worked at think tanks for international relations and international law, focusing a lot on economic development policy and also Middle Eastern relations. So
Wow.
that was my first career.
And I saw you went to the first private university in Israel. Is that right?
That's right. Yes, the Reichman University. So they're actually, I'll tell you a little secret. They're the only ones who offered a full English program. And I'm like, my Hebrew's good, but it's not like academically good. So that was the that was the main reason why I initially went there. But then being there, it was an amazing place. Like it's really the Ivy League of Israel in terms of also like having this international outlook and really focusing the students on doing things that are extracurriculars. And it being a private university, I walked into the dean's office. I was like, the chutzpah, right? Now that you think of it, it's like my first year, like knock on the dean's door. And I'm like, so there's this thing called Model United Nations, and I need a budget from you of like $40,000 so I can start doing it here. And he's like, okay, let's get the ball rolling. And they're like, and so I did a lot of like Model UN, and there was a lot of the globalization and economics and international aspect were always very strong with me.
And how did you move so you worked at the UN, which is pretty amazing. And how did you move from that into tech, or was that just what happened there?
So I've been, my whole life, I've been back and forth between North America and Israel. I was actually born in Canada. I went to McGill also, but I went to I was in the Israeli IDF and the intelligence corps. And I've been always back and forth. I'm a little bit of a nomad. And one of the times going back and forth, because working in international relations, like it's a different kind of a visa. When we decided, it was about 8 years ago, actually following my husband for the first time to come back to North America, there was this like green card waiting period where I couldn't work. And it was a chance for me that not many people get in their lives to sort of say, wait, what do I actually want to do now? It's not just like running from one opportunity to the other. It's like, I can't work. So I have a few months to figure that out. And I was doing a lot of reading. Obviously, I was in New York at the time, talking to a lot of NGOs who work with the UN or around some of the ESG initiatives. And I came across the World Food Program, which is an arm of the UN, was doing a pilot with Ethereum using to help the distribution of food for refugee camps in northern Jordan, I believe it was, Syrian refugees. And there was a white paper describing the mechanisms and how everything is immutable, the data is immutable and completely transparent and can be externally auditable. And I'm like, what is this magical technology that's solving all these problems we've been talking about at the UN for 50 years of like, how do we make sure that aid actually gets there? How do we make sure it's equally distributed once it gets there? Like, how do the donor countries, like Norway, who's putting in $500 million into the World Food Program, has accountability for every dollar that they put in? And they're describing this magical technology that does it. I'm like, what? So I started digging into the Ethereum ecosystem, and through it, obviously, to the fundamentals of blockchain, Bitcoin, and Ethereum. And my mind was blown. initially with mostly with just the social impact aspects of what things like of the different ways you can use this technology. And then as I dug in more into also just how it can revolutionize different financial aspects, just optimize a lot of our existing economies. And having worked a lot with developing economies, I think there are a lot of things that we in North America take for granted about money, because money, a lot of it is based on trust, that you trust the government, you trust the system and the institutions, and that's not the case in most of the world. So when a lot of people don't get Bitcoin, and I think one of the best examples was when I was talking to my dad about Bitcoin and initially explaining it to him. I'm like, yes, okay, well, you have dollars and shekels, you relatively trust the system, right? It's like, think about your friend. He has a friend in Turkey who he does business with, and I'm like, their inflation is like what, 70% a year, which means
Wow.
every what you're making loses value because of the government and central bank decisions. In non-democracies, most of it is the same, right? The government actually decides what the interest rates, et cetera, would be. And then the government, the Turkish government, as a specific example, doesn't let its citizen convert the lira to dollar. So you can't move your money to a better value currency, and you can't take it out. The bank, you can't take it out of the country. The bank controls the amount that you take out. And I'm like, so Bitcoin was basically made for these people more than it was for you, okay? Because this allows them to actually put their money in a store of value that they trust and believe in, and it allows them to always move it around outside the country. You know, they had a kid who was studying in the United States. Like, how do you pay her tuition when the government does not allow you to convert to dollars and move it away? And Bitcoin allows that. So that really made a mind frame change for a lot of people that I spoke to, and I think my background kind of helped with that. But going back from my tangent,
Well, it's not a tangent, because what you're saying is you're right. Most people don't have that perspective, right? We take for granted currency stability in this country because the dollar is the strongest currency in the world and has been for at least 100 years, I would say. It's just no one thinks about it. But like you said, if you're living in an area where the food prices might be 50% higher tomorrow morning based on what the government does, or you may not have access to your cash because the banks are subject to central banking laws of a government and they shut down the banks or they limit the withdrawals. We've seen it in many, many countries. It's got to work on someone's mindset, and think about what it does to business. Forget about people in the street. If you can't write a check, you can't write a contract, you can't make a delivery, hold inventory, et cetera, because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, next week, next month. That affects the way that you plan, that affects the way that you budget. And it's definitely a global issue that I don't think we deal with in America much at all. So it's interesting that you have that background. And you're right, the technology behind blockchain and Ethereum and some of the cryptos was put in place, I think, to bring in a level playing field, let people transact freely without these hindrances of central banks and governments. And it's changed. I mean, we don't see it here like that, but someone sitting in El Salvador, which has adopted Bitcoin, I believe, right? And it changes the way their economy works, all the way down to how people are interacting on a daily basis, spending money, earning money, et cetera. Because like you said, the stability is erratic in many, many places. I would say at least half the world's got issues with currency stability that's life changing on a daily, if not monthly basis.
Definitely. We have a lot of both users of Upland and employees in Brazil.
Mm.
And Brazil just actually adopted Bitcoin as one of the official currencies, which is great. But yeah, they're facing the same problem. Your money is devalued because of actions of the government or external forces, like former governments who have taken specific loans. It can be anything, but Bitcoin is a great store of value for them. And the UX UI and transactions, obviously, endpoint is very important to. Maybe I'll jump into more examples with the endpoint as I evolved into. So at first it was just, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm going down the rabbit hole, just reading everything I can get my hands on. And obviously I was one of those annoying people who talk about blockchain and crypto in 2017 at every dinner. And I had a good friend who's a VC. And he came to me after a dinner where it was like hammering me about what I've read. And he's like, listen, I have a portfolio company. They're trying to convince me to move from to adopt basically Ethereum and have a blockchain backend and have a new use case. I want you to help them do that. And I'm like, dude, I don't understand anything. I'm like, I just got into this a month ago. I'm just reading. Like, I don't know what this is about. I haven't even scratched the surface. He looks at me. He's like, no one knows what they're talking about. Everyone who tells you they understand this is lying. There are like 10 people who understand this technology. You'll be fine. just go and help them. So I met the guys, and they had a really cool use case. And I just started going into tech that way. And from there, I worked with them on a 6-month project, which was my first sort of like blockchainization. And I then a large Israeli layer 2 company called Orbs snatched me, basically. And I started out as I did everything there. I started out as just doing marketing, more product marketing in a way, strategic market marketing, as like describing what they do. Because, these are the greatest technological minds I've ever met in my life, but they couldn't explain for shit what they actually do.
Not unusual, yeah.
And they're like, we're like EOS, but better. And we work with Ethereum. And I'm like, explain the mechanism to me like I'm a 2-year-old. And then explain it again and explain it again. I'm like, okay, you're a layer 2. Like, you built an amazing layer 2. Okay, I can work with this. And then I also did most of their business development in North America, both with their enterprise offering, trying to get, I don't know if you remember the 2018 was a little bit of 18-19 was a little bit of the enterprise blockchain hype, where
Yes.
you have all the IBM hyperledgers coming in, be like, this is blockchain, here, come pay us a few $1 million so we can implement this magical technology for you. And we came in saying, well, you don't need to pay $2 million. This is very easy to implement. We can do it in a week with you. And a private ledger is not really a blockchain. And that process of working with the enterprises and trying to convince them to work on a public chain as opposed to private chain, we knew it was a process that would take years. But I actually really enjoyed because the process itself helped us define better and crystallize what is the benefit of using a public blockchain, because we had to explain it. And not only did we have to explain it, we had to undo the IBM explanation, like in a very clear way of, these are the benefits of public blockchain. It's immutability, it's external auditability and complete transparency, and it's forkability, the ability to, at any time, if you're not happy with the authority, whether it's centralized, a DAO, etc., you can fork a live instance. And when the way they really got it is when we compared it to open source code. So in the 10 years before that, there's been, especially in enterprises, a big evolution in their mindset to understand. Even the biggest opponents of open source, like Microsoft 10 years ago, decided that, okay, this is the future. This is how we become a platform. We actually give up some of the proprietary technology, but we gain so much more. And I think Android is the perfect example, right? Like Android went from when Google took over, it had like less than 5% market cap, and when they open sourced it, it went up to 70, because it gave partners those guarantees that Google can't do evil with the code, because at any given time we can fork the code and make our own version. I think Samsung was a great example, right? They had their own shitty like operating system, and then they adopted Android. And then part of the reasoning for this, if you look at the risk assessment, is that they don't need to trust, they're not at the mercy of Google as soon as this is open source. If Google does something very detrimental to Samsung's business, let's say force everyone using Android to only use Google Maps and not any other maps, that would kill a company like Samsung, right? Because in South Korea, legally you can't have external like non Korean servers that are doing the mapping service, and that would basically kill Samsung, right? So just knowing that they could at any time take the code, create their own Android version Samsung, then that gave them the ability to trust Android, and grew the Android ecosystem. What we explained to them is that blockchain is that on speed, because you're not just talking about forking the code, you're talking about forking a live instance.
Well, I think you're also talking about Web 2 versus Web 3, right? This is the genesis of Web 3, where instead of a centralized body controlling all of the processes, like you said, if Google chose to shut off Android tomorrow, you're leaving everybody in the lurch. You're saying, no, we're going to stand this up on its own, so that no matter if one node goes down, the rest of it still functions. And I think those, like you said, when IBM, I remember those days, everything was Hyperledger this, Hyperledger that. And it was, I thought, wow, this is like when websites first came up and people said, oh, you could build a website, but it's $1 million. And you thought, wow, that just takes away the ability, accessibility for 99% of the public or companies even to work with this. And all of a sudden, maybe a year or two later, people thought, well, you can build a website for $500, right? And now you can build them for free. But it started up as a very exclusive club. It was very centralized, held by a very few. And then the accessibility opened up from that. But I think that's the genesis of Web3, right? Where it's decentralized. It's not, the power's not resting with a few people that have a lot of money and a lot of control, but you can participate across a wider breadth in a way that, again, provides that accessibility for a lot of people. Interesting that you saw that junction.
Yeah, and I would argue that the more interesting use cases that would bring more value are the ones that use the public technology, and not the private. Like, they cannot be built with the private infrastructure.
Yeah, but look at GitHub, right? The whole basis for GitHub is here's the best code. It's been sussed out by a number of developers and use cases. So if you want to use it, here it is. And it used to be held precious, right? Oh, it's patented, it's my copyright. And now it's like, it's just a payment module, right? There's 1 million of them, and here's some of the best ones, and you can use them in your project. And without spending another week and $10,000 or $100,000 in engineering and development costs, you now have a payment module that you could plug into your platform without having to go through all that. And you're right, they're giving up something, but you're also getting the robustness of a decentralized platform with the ability to put modules together in a much faster, more efficient way. So there's a huge upside.
Interestingly enough, the same architectural philosophy was actually adopted in different ways by Upland as a metaverse platform. So Upland is a Web3 metaverse platform mapped to the real world, where the largest one by far in terms of, let's say, unique landowner, different KPIs like unique landowners. We have over 290,000 unique landowners, whereas our colleagues at Decentraland, Sandbox, the other side, have about 20,000. So there are a few reasons for that. And one of them is the philosophy behind building a metaverse platform that is a little bit, some of our users call it layer one metaverse. Because when we, for example, have our Web3, we have a developer tools to bring in different developers. A lot of the platforms are saying, okay, we're going to actually build you a tool that's super useful for you to build an experience on our platform. And Upland's approach is different. Upland is saying, you don't need to use our tools and build an experience that is specific to Upland. Bring your Web2 app, bring whatever your experience that you build for other metaverses, bring it all together, connect it to Upland, and in a way, Upland becomes the lobby of the metaverse. Same goes for avatars. So we're going to have, we're implementing avatars in I think Q1 2023, but any users out there, don't kill me yet. We haven't published don't kill me if it's Q2, because we haven't finalized the roadmap. So there will be avatars in Upland, but it doesn't have to be an Upland avatar. You can import whether it's your Ready Player Me or your Vox from Gala or your Bored Ape. We don't care. Like you bring in your metaverse identity and you can use whatever you want. Same goes with assets. That's how we're planning the future.
That's brilliant. And I think that kind of interoperability is going to be critical to success, right? If you only build something that works on your platform, I was talking about this with the DressX folks. If you buy a wearable and you can only wear it in one place, that limits the functionality, by exponentially. So you want to wear something everywhere. And if you can't use it everywhere, then maybe the value is smaller. But let's talk about Upland. So you went from politics to the UN to discovering Bitcoin, Ethereum, and now you're moving into a decentralized platform. Well, it's not even really decentralized. I shouldn't say that really, right? There's still a structure with Upland.
It's a Web3 platform, yeah.
It's a Web3 platform. What sets Upland aside from all the other platforms? And you mentioned Decentraland and the Sandbox, Voxels. I mean, there's other platforms, but you guys are doing it differently. You're looking at mapping actual addresses, actual streets, actual geography in certain territories. I know it's not everywhere yet, but it's growing, and I've got some familiarity with it in Southern California. I've seen it in Brazil, like you said. I think you guys opened in Portugal. How'd you get involved, and then where do you see this whole thing building out?
So I mean, I've been, like we talked, I've been in the Web3 space since 2017. And how I got involved is a headhunter approached me, and it's like, oh, I have this position, you'll be perfect for it. And I'm like, what? She's like, it's a metaverse. I'm like, nah. I'm like, I work on infrastructure. I'm not really into the whole, fantasy world. She's like, no, this is different. Like just meet with the founders and tell me what you think. I'm like, okay, fine. Like, let's understand what this is all about. And when I sat with Dirk and Idan and we went deeper into the levels of how they built the economy itself and their vision for the future of it being really an immersive social economic visual layer for the internet, my mind was blown in a way that it hasn't in a long time. I think since I first heard about Ethereum. Because, I've been around the Web3 circus. I know all the use cases. I have the biggest bullshit radar you've ever seen. And all of a sudden I'm hearing something that's going like way beyond in terms of vision and utilizing the technology thinking about economics and doing it also right in terms of the architecture. I think you said, oh, Upland's decentralized, but it's not. Like there are aspects to it where there were decisions made that I very much agree with and relate to, like not doing a completely decentralized platform from day one, but having the operator maintain a certain control, and then building the nascent in a way that protects the nascent economy and guides it in the right direction, and then slowly opening it. I would say, the whole decentralize or die can work on certain things like DeFi, but when you're actually building a complete economy, and it's very different, and you don't want to be slowed down by endless DAO decisions.
And it doesn't always work in DeFi. I mean, DeFi is also a very scary place. I mean, if everybody says, hey, that's my bank account, and there's no arbiter to say, no, that's not your bank account, like you said, it gets muddled down into this vote or some governance, and then and nothing happens. And I was talking to Sherry Hugh at Water and Music about this, and she was going on waving the flag about decentralizing. I'm like, but isn't your company completely centralized? She's like, of course it is. I said, well, are you such a proponent for decentralizing if your own company isn't decentralized? She goes, because we never get anything done. That's exactly right. And I think your case about
striking a balance,
phasing it in, right? There's certain levels I think that are important to be decentralized, and certain levels that should actually have some governance and control. And then that can change, and like you said, a balance over time where, okay, we've got a population like this now, we have an established economy, we know the base set of rules are in place, everybody likes how it's working, let's open that up a little bit. But I think, it has to be flexible, it has to be breathing, and it has to evolve. I've seen these guys that jump out. And I remember talking to Jesse Walden at A16Z Crypto once, and he said, you got to decentralize the whole music rights business. I'm like, Jesse, nobody takes Bitcoin. Nobody takes Ethereum. Beyonce doesn't take Solana. Sony Records doesn't take Ethereum. That doesn't work in the global structure today. That might be an ultimate solution, but right now it's all fiat from 200 different countries coming in, and it's being remitted to the writers in fiat. So you're in
LA. So with the music space, I always had an example. I mean, we're missing a lot of infrastructure that would allow for that complete decentralization.
Yes.
And since 2017, the use case that every 6 months I hear someone's trying to do it, decentralized Uber. Why does Uber need to take 20% from each side? It's as a platform. It's so easy to write a smart contract that just matches drivers and users, and it takes like a 2% fee. And no. And I'm like, fantastic. Okay. How do you have a tool to do decentralized identity verification for the drivers, or insurance verification for the drivers,
right,
or customer support? It's like, do you have a way to do that in the smart contract decentralized? It's like, obviously not. We do not have decentralized insurance verifications yet. It's a great use case. I know a number of companies that are working on it. It's fantastic. It will be in the future a substantial foundation of the decentralized economy, but it's not here yet. And if you don't have those infrastructure components, never mind, the end. At the end of the day, someone needs to get paid in a currency where they can buy food and pay rent. Then we're just not there yet. We know that's the future. Let's start building the foundations.
Yeah. If you're dealing with money or rights, those are two very, very good use cases for blockchain, but they still have to be measured, right? You can't just say everybody has everything today, because someone's going to say, hey, that's my house, or that's my money. And maybe it is, and maybe it's not, right? And so at some point, like you said, there's got to be some type of phase in where there are controls and say, hey, you can access these accounts, but maybe you can't take things in or out of them yet, right? You can see read only, right? That's one thing where you see, oh, you're allowed to look in these wallets. You can't move anything in or out, but you can see if something's there, right? That's like maybe the first level. And then you give someone access to withdraw or make a deposit. That's a much higher level of verification, authorization, et cetera, and maybe that's still centralized.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an ongoing balance. I think as long as we're aware that it's an evolution and it's a sliding scale, then we can move
So
forward.
let me actually answer your question, which was
Sorry.
what's Upland doing different? So yes, the first thing is being mapped to the real world as opposed to fantasy worlds. Each of these have, I think, very different value propositions. I think a lot of the brands, they can do a really crazy cool experience in a fantasy world, but a lot of them see, wait, it's like, I actually want my real, can I get my real address in the the Upland metaverse to have a shop and then sell NFTs, sell digital projects that relate to both. There's both for brands and putting things in context also for people. While I was interviewing, I was playing around with Upland. Obviously, I go directly to my address and I'm like, how much does it cost? I want to buy my address because I have both an emotional connection to a certain place, and it gives me context. I know where the cool places are. You're next to the beach. You're next to a commercial zone. So that's one aspect that's very cool and unique about Upland.
So does Upland actually use real addresses? Because is each parcel the actual same size, and is that the exact lot that's registered with the county or whatever the governance body
Yeah.
is? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Just like Google Maps. Yeah.
Interesting. And then I think offline we talked earlier about rights, right? So if I actually own that physical piece of property at 123 Main Street, you're basically creating a layer, a digital layer, virtual layer at 123 Main Street. So the underlying physical property owner at this point doesn't have any rights. Is that correct?
No, it's not related. It's redoing the world. And I mean, the legal structure is the same as, Google Map monetizing on the maps. The addresses and the parcels are in the United States public.
Okay.
So
But do you see squatters? Do people come in and just, I don't want to say developers, because a lot of platforms, if you're part of the team, you're like, I guess I'm just going to go buy the state of California because there's no one in here yet, right? So how do you prevent either whales or corporations or larger influencers from coming in and just, or do you permit? I mean, do you just allow that?
no, they can't, even if they wanted to. So city openings in Upland is a very unique and competitive event where we, in advance, we tell people, it's like, we're opening the city. It's going to be this and this many 30,000 parcels in these neighborhoods. Everyone, the players prepare, and they come in, they have their game pieces like fly in or drive in to that specific location, and they get ready, and they research in advance which parcels they want, and then they go at it when we open it. So it's such a competitive event that a big corporation, even if they wanted to, they couldn't. We also added a few in order to level the playing field even more. We did like a 2-minute cool down period between minting. At the end of the day, it's also a free economy though, meaning if there's a big corporation or an individual, and we have a few of those who want to buy everything off of other players in the secondary market, and those players are ready to sell, then they can do it.
And it's still supply and demand. There's no market pricing. You're not juicing that price variation at all. It's
No,
if someone buys it
there's specific, we have a specific algorithm based on city tiers. So, obviously Detroit and LA are not priced the same in the minting. And based on real world value of certain areas, that's how we determine the initial minting cost. But the initial minting cost is only relevant for the first 5 minutes before everyone buys everything.
And then, all right, so you guys determine a floor, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. We determine the floor. And what's cool about Upland, and this is there is similarities to the real world is the fact that you can add value. It's not just about, my property in Malibu and Rodeo Drive. Okay. You can have a shitty neighborhood in Queens, but that has a community there. Okay. We have an example. Our Brazilian community took over a neighborhood in Queens. They decided to call it Little Brazil. They had a minting party. They're starting their own local governance with the governance tools that we're giving them. They decide how we're going to build, what structures we're going to build, how we're going to decorate them. We have another neighborhood, Portage Park in Chicago, who elected a mayor. And they have a statue that they vote on, and they have different activities. So a lot of these places, the value of the parcel or the value of any really like NFT that represents an address in that neighborhood is based on the community that lives there and how active they are. And that's the most amazing thing to see, because it's not, I'm going to buy a lot and wait for the next bull market for everything to go up and be hyped. Like you're adding value just like you would to your property by having a better neighborhood and better schools and a community involvement and beautiful houses. You raise the value of your neighborhood.
Very interesting. And also we should mention that the parcels are not just squares. I think on most of the other platforms, you're buying, a whatever, an acre equivalent or 4x4, whatever it is, a 1x1 square, whereas these are actually mapped parcels. So if someone lives on a hill and their land looks like a pie or something, that's exactly what you're buying here, right?
We have some weird parcels. And the OG users, a lot of our players, like they already plan, because there are different things. You don't just buy, you could buy a parcel and build your home on it. Okay, then you have your address, and there's a whole mechanism that allows you to vote in that locality. But you can also build a factory to create NFTs. You can also build a showroom to sell NFTs. We don't have a central, one marketplace. We have users who have stores or showrooms where they really sell the secondary market. They decide what they're going to sell, what the pricing is. It's on them. It's not us doing it.
So what's the zoning like? Can you put a cement factory next to a yoga studio? I mean, is there any control at all, or does it follow actual city zoning, or is it just...
No, we don't follow a real city zoning in Upland as a platform. We leave that to local government in a way. So right now a user can do whatever they want, right, in their parcel. But again, some communities decide to make those decisions together.
Okay, so there's a way to contact the person that lives next to you, as the parcel next to you, and you could communicate with them, and then contact the person that lives on the other side, and build. This is all. I mean, I have parcels in Upland, but I guess I could figure out how to reach. The only way I know how to reach somebody is to make an offer on their property. Is there another way to communicate with them?
So right now, most of that communication is done on Discord channels. So
Okay.
a lot of neighborhoods have their own Discord channel, and that's where they manage things. We are working very hard, the community team and the development team, on bringing in-game communication. So we see people live in Discord to manage those decisions. We want to make it easier for them, also for the people who are not on Discord. And we're bringing that in. So it would be different chat rooms based on different interests or localities, or just the ability to contact another user.
And tell me about like the motor company, because I saw that you guys, I think it's launched, but I know you're developing a car company, and it had some cool looking cars, but there aren't really roads. I don't remember if are there roads? I don't think there's actually
roads. Yeah, the roads. So we launched the car functionality and mechanics in Upland during Genesis Week in June, and as well as the initial MV Motors, Metaverse Motors, which is our in-house brand, which is the first car. So users buy cars and they're awesome, cool NFTs, but like everything in Upland, they have utility. Nothing in Upland is just a pretty NFT. The utility for the cars is one, racing. So we're developing, Upland as a platform is developing different racing in the streets of Upland. So different neighborhoods applied for to create in their neighborhoods different racing tracks. And now they're the ones that were approved are getting really excited. They're building different outdoor decor for their tracks and how to decorate it. And there are already racing guilds and different community organizations that are organizing the different races.
So wait. So there's no avatars yet. How do I drive my MV Motors car without an avatar, or is the car the avatar? I mean, what's
the car,
okay.
like you own the car, the car goes, and like right now on the streets, like on the outdoor of Upland, your avatar, your Upland identity is always your block explorer.
Yep.
Like the game piece.
But that's not gonna, that's this huge, if you haven't seen it, it looks like it takes up about a half a block. It looks like a blimp. And I know you can customize them, but it floats around. I don't even know really what it
so
does.
when you're in the car, it's like you look like you know, when you're racing, like you're the driver, right? But the idea here is, again, with taking the racing as an example, that's where we also have the third-party developer tools that can work with Upland assets. So we now have either existing racing games who are interested in coming in and saying, okay, so we connect to Upland, and then the Upland NFT cars can also race in our game. And maybe they can race for UPEX, or maybe they can win awards that are NFTs in Upland that we've produced. And we also have the Uplanders themselves creating very cool racing experiences. The car functionality is not just racing, it's also going to have utility of moving, like driving your block explorer around. Because right now in Upland, we do have the mechanics where you, from getting from place A to B, you actually need to travel. You can't teleport. Try to make it as much as the real world as possible. And with cars, what we're working on is that the cars can drive you around. So that opens up, okay, someone wants to build a rideshare business for people who don't have cars, and then maybe I can drive them where they want to go because I do have a car, and then my car kind of makes yield. It's not really, but it's earning, right? Because I'm giving another player a service using my NFT car.
But what if there's like a traffic jam in Upland? Is that possible? What if everybody has 8 cars and they can't get down their little street? I mean, and do you need a traffic light? Do you need freeways? I mean, you're talking about building out infrastructure. It's pretty detailed.
Yeah. That's a very good question. I'll have to ask the product manager for cars what they think about car jams. But so far, cars are super exclusive right now. We have very limited qualities. We have I think once a month we have a car sale, and we have like 10,000 registrants for 300 cars. Like it's not congested yet. And the idea is also to have other real world brands with their cool car IP come into Upland, something we're working on too.
Very cool. And will you get a different point of view? Because I know right now it's pretty much top down. But if I'm driving down, the 405 or PCH or whatever, am I going to be able to look at a car POV versus a aircraft POV?
Yeah, in the racing you do. And in all that's what the developer layer 2 experiences are for. One of the most, and this is going back to the differentiators, one of the most important things in the building of Upland was that it's mobile first. Okay.
It's not all mobile, because I know some transactions.
There's definitely web. There's definitely
Force
web,
you back to the web. Yeah.
but it's mobile first. And I think this is really important for anyone who's in the metaverse space, because a lot of people are like, oh, metaverse, they think about, the Zuckerverse, like the meta, like VR and VR, AR, like all these things that the technology is 10 years away from mass adoption. And for us, it's really important to meet users where they are today. And users today are on their phones.
Sure. That's really smart. And I think the most successful, let's just call it VR, AR, whatever you want to call it, hardware piece is going to be phone driven initially. And then it will be something that you could put in your pocket. If it's not a phone, it'll be something that's mobile. Like you said, no one's going to have a laptop.
Glasses. As soon as
Yeah.
Apple come out with glasses, it's probably
Yes.
be
But you're
that's what
smart.
technology is there and can actually move
It's
us
there. It's coming fast. I don't know about 10 years. I'm going to bet in 2 to 3 years, there's going to be something you can buy for the $500 price point that will get you 90% of what you're going to be able to get with a full, let's call it an Oculus setup or something. But
Yeah.
you're right. Once the hard, and I always wondered, I'm looking at Meta, I'm like, they're up against a lot, but they also have relatively deep pockets. Why wouldn't they focus on hardware first, right? Whoever gets across that line with, let's call it a $500 lightweight, highly mobile headset, it's going to work across all platforms, right? And you're going to, I don't know, to me, there's where you get your subscription base. There's where you get mass adoption. And yes, what land is going to be the best place to use that? We don't know yet, but you have to have the hardware to get there. But you're right. And you guys, you're also gamifying pretty heavily, right? There's a lot of, and I've not even scratched the surface of what happens, because I see all these rewards and you get points for holding the land. It's almost like you're a landlord. You're not really a landlord, but they give you points for holding land. And then you can get points for doing certain tasks, for going to certain things, opening up certain things. And then
We have treasure hunts, we have games.
Yes.
There are always options for users who want to earn a little bit from gaming, from doing different tasks in the game. Most users come in as for the more strategy and building,
and you could get in with a credit card, right? You just literally boom,
Yeah.
and you've bought it. And then you're also involved with FIFA. I saw that you launched that, and there's a heavy sports component to Upland as well.
So the credit card aspect, also what puts Upland apart is Upland is completely regulatory compliant in the United States. We do not have an externally traded token. That allows us, one, protect our economy from the
Volatility,
external macro conditions. And two, it allows us to have fiat out and fiat in and fiat out, which is, so the extraction of value from having a good strategy in the game is possible in US dollars, because we don't have an externally traded.
That's a big deal. That is a huge deal.
We work with Tilia, which is a company that's spun out of Second Life. So let's say your neighborhood is now amazing because there's like cool showrooms and cool experiences there, and you have one property you want to sell. You can sell it in the game for UPX, for the in-game currency, or you can sell it to a different player for US dollars going into your PayPal account. And there are ever since we opened that functionality this year, over $9 million were extracted in value.
Wow. And so how many cities in the US right now? Do you know?
About 10 cities.
Okay. And not all the cities. I've looked around LA and there's areas still that aren't fully mapped out.
Like Beverly Hills is not open. So I think a lot of projects that we've seen, even those who tried to do mapping to the real world, one of the first fails that a lot of them have is that, boom, they open the whole world. It's like, there's a little thing called supply and demand and scarcity, which is the essence of NFTs and building an economy the right way, all these little things that make a successful metaverse platform. So yeah, one of them is really, we unless there's a reason, and a reason could be a partner who wants, that they're wants their HQ in a specific city, or working with, we work with the NFLPA, so usually we open the Super Bowl city, unless there's a brand, a reason for us opening a city with a specific brand. We only open when there is supply pressures, or sorry, demand pressures that require more supply to open. Because if we just open everything, then everything is losing value. It's inflation of property when they're when you don't have still the crazy mass adoption to accommodate it.
Sure. Okay. How big is the team? And are you guys based? I don't even know if you're US based, right? Where's Dirk? Dirk is in.
Now here, Silicon Valley. So we're in our HQ is in Silicon Valley.
Okay.
We have an office in Vegas.
Gotta have an office in Vegas.
Gotta have we're about 115 all around. Now, most of our staff is actually in Ukraine. We had 4 offices in Ukraine. Now we have 2.
Wow.
We moved everyone. Yeah, we had to move everyone to Lviv and Kiev to make sure they're safe. And we have employees in Brazil as well.
And how many countries are you open in as far as land parcels?
Land parcels. So the United States, Brazil, and Portugal.
Okay.
For now.
Okay.
Yeah. We did announce, so we do have a partnership with FIFA. One of the things we announced is that whoever wins the World Cup will open the capital of that city, of that country. So that's going to be really exciting. That probably would be the next international city to come. And yeah, our partnership with FIFA that you mentioned is a really cool opportunity, because this is a global brand. People already celebrate their fandom and their excitement around the World Cup, and having, rooting for their country, rooting for their colors. And the metaverse allows you to do that in an immersive way online.
It's very smart. You're tapping into deep fan bases, like you said, with deep engagement levels, and they're regionalized, right? So if it's Manchester, they're generally, you got fans all over the world, but generally there's a heavy concentration in Manchester, and those people are the deepest fans you'll ever find, right? And if you can follow that up with letting them participate, like you said, in a community based in their locale, that's very smart, actually.
So the FIFA product goes beyond that. So there is the aspect of what we call owning your colors. So people in Upland, you have a parcel, you build a structure on it. For the World Cup, you can now decorate it. You could buy NFTs that are either UGC from one of our users who created them and sell them in their stores, or you could buy FIFA branded ones to decorate your property, to show in the metaverse, because a lot of your identity now and your community is not just your immediate physical community, but it's your online community, and you want to show that community, just like you would go around wearing a scarf, with like, yay, go USA, go Team USA or Team Brazil. You'd want your metaverse house to also be fully decked out to show your support for Brazil.
100%. I mean, the wearables, that's all about wearables, right? And again, talking to the
customization, and so that's one aspect of the FIFA product. The second one is as I mentioned, we have a partnership with the NFLPA with a product called Legits, which is really cool. We took it to the next level with FIFA, where we sold packs, and think about it like Panini on speed, because we sold different packs with different items. You can then complete collections with those items, and certain packs have passes that are specific to like round of 16, the finals, like the different rounds in FIFA. I don't know how big a soccer, I mean, we are in the States, I don't know how big soccer fan you are. And what is really cool is that part of our deal with FIFA is that we got the highlight videos, okay, that we call Spotlight, from the tournament as NFTs. So
Wow.
rather than just doing a marketplace, selling them as is, there is a whole gamification mechanism that you can't buy them, you have to earn them. You have to complete collections, you have to trade with other players in order to complete collections, otherwise you can't do it. So we have, all these communication going on. It's like, who has the England, mascot, FIFA mascot from 1983? I needed to complete my collection. And then you can choose to trade the pass and win different cool awards. One of them, or one kind of them, is the spotlight, which could be like Messi's goal from today's game as an NFT, which is super valuable and super cool for fans for something to own. And if you look at the Panini craziness, they're in all of South America, you can get Panini anywhere. They're sold out as soon as they come in. And this is taking that concept and putting it in 3D, making it the goal itself and not just a photo of someone. Like there's so much you can do here.
You're
And
amplifying it. It's so smart, and integrating it into a real estate play on the metaverse. Who would have thought that? I appreciate you coming on today. I know we're close to our hour, but Danny Brown Wolf, thank you for coming over from Upland. I look forward to continuing this conversation because there's so much to talk about, and you guys have built out an amazing platform and continue to have amazing ideas and integrations that I can't even think of yet. But FIFA being one, avatars two, and the car thing. Thank you so much for participating and hopping on today.
oh, this was fun. Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Danny.